Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in the upstate of South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in the Greater Greenville area, and you can find all of my contact information in the show notes if you need to reach out to me for any reason. If you have any real estate needs, buying, selling, flipping, investing, whatever the case may be, I can help you out with any of that. That is my job. That's what I do full-time. I am a full-time realtor. This podcast does not generate any money for me outside of referring business to me, and it's referred quite a bit of business to me over the past few years. But that is the way to contact me. The contact information that's there in the show notes. You can reach out to me at any time. If you send me an email and you don't hear back from me within at least a day, it means that I did not get your email, because I operate on a zero inbox basis with my email, and Gmail has been cracking down on security lately. Our server with Sedan Joiner Realtors, which is the company I'm with, we operate off of Gmail servers, so or at least something like that. I'm not super tech savvy to know the correct terminology, but anyway, our email is essentially Gmail, even though it's at sedanjoiner.com. It's hosted by Gmail. And so yeah, just keep that in mind if you need to reach out to me. And not to belabor the point, but as well, if you like this show, please leave a rating and a review. Someone left me a 1-star rating recently. I tend to think that it was some disgruntled realtor that just wanted to get back at me for, having the idea of having a podcast before them. But if you guys could just, everyone that is listening to this, if you can just take a second, open up, if you're just, listening to this through, maybe the link that I'm sending you an email, please go ahead and open up your podcast app and search for Selling Greenville, and then hit the 5-star button to drown out. I've got 1-star review, 2-star review. Those are the most recent that I've seen. I want to drown those guys out. So please hit that 5-star button. And if you can take a second, leave a short little review as well. And by the way, as well, once you're in the app, make sure you hit subscribe, and that'll, give you a notification when this show releases every Wednesday morning, which is when I try to release it. Today, we are going to talk about the area of Piedmont, South Carolina, a very interesting area overall, right there on the border between Greenville and Anderson County. In fact, half of the city, if you want to call it a city, half the city of Piedmont is located on the Greenville County side, and half of it is on the Anderson County side, similar to Greer. Greer is half in Greenville and half in Spartanburg counties. Piedmont is an area that it's really a unique location, not just because it's split between two counties, but also it's kind of out in a rural area, but also not very far from downtown Greenville. So if you're wanting more of a country type of vibe, but you still want to be within 15 to 20 minutes of downtown Greenville, Piedmont really offers a lot of great options. I sold a house there recently that a client of mine flipped, that when I was over there, I would hear, roosters doing their cock-a-doodle-doo thing, just like at any point during the day. Like, it still has that type of rural feel to it, but it's close to everything there on the west side. Now, if you're needing to commute to, the east side of Greenville or start to go out towards Spartanburg, it's a little bit of a hike once you start to try to access areas like that. But if most of your life revolves on the west side or towards downtown Greenville, or maybe even up north towards Travelers Rest, it's not super inconvenient to get up in that direction. Piedmont is a really interesting location as well. And it's also, in a sense, there's a sense in which it's not that far from some of the other things on the west side as well. Like, for instance, if you worked in Easley, or for whatever reason you needed to commute to Clemson, it's closer to those areas than some other parts of the upstate. We talked about this several episodes ago when I was analyzing the various markets and how they did in 2021. But Piedmont has historically been one of the places where you can get some of the most affordable housing in the upstate. It's one of the few places remaining where that still remains true. in 2021, the average for the general Piedmont area, the average, or actually not technically the average, but the median sales price, median is what we go off of, was $185,900. That's approximately $100,000 less than the median in the Greater Greenville area as a whole. And so that is something to consider. That was one part of Piedmont. Then another part of Piedmont was $195,900. So basically, the Piedmont area is where you can still find some affordable housing. Now, there's not a ton of inventory that comes up in the Piedmont area, but I mean, let's face it, that's everywhere right now. There's not much inventory anywhere you go, anywhere in the Upstate. So Piedmont is just keeping up with everywhere else. So it has been kind of a place where people have been now, that maybe they were thinking about being kind of more on the east side of Greenville, wanting to be able to have quick access to downtown, but they don't, really like Easley. They don't, want to be in that area. It's still, some parts of Easley are still starting to get more expensive than Piedmont. And so people are starting to get pushed into that Piedmont area, and it's really not a bad area to get pushed into. And as of February, and I don't know if this is going to hold, but in one of the Piedmont markets, the median price point was $261,000, and the other one was $245,000. So that's going to be a really fascinating thing to monitor. I'm not, without digging into that, I'm not exactly sure what's driving that. If there's some new construction driving that, or whatever the case may be. But it seems like there might be some rapid gentrification happening in that area. But what I want to discuss is, and we've talked about this before, I did a show last year on Poe Mill and the development that's about to happen over there. It was sidetracked because of COVID. I hear it's supposed to be happening pretty soon, and it looks awesome. It truly looks amazing what they are looking to do over there at the Poe Mill. Well, we've talked about this in the past. The Greenville area was a mill area. It was the economy years ago was driven by mills, and Piedmont was no exception. Piedmont, right there in the downtown of Piedmont, you have the Saluda River, and the Saluda is what powered the mill right there in the downtown area. And if you drive through, you'll see it. It's actually, if it wasn't in such a state of disrepair, you can actually see that there is some beauty to it. And so there used to be, and I mean, there kind of are, the remains of two mills that were in Piedmont, one on the Anderson County side and then one on the Greenville County side, with a footbridge that went in between them. And my understanding is that it was a really vibrant mill town kind of community. And I mean, you can, if you drive through, you can kind of see that. And it looks very similar to if you're in the other Greenville mill areas, such as Poe Mill, such as Dunedin Mills, Mills Mill, all of these different mills. You'll notice that there is a certain look to these mill villages. And I didn't realize until recently that people that aren't from Greenville don't even really know what this is. So back in the day, back when these mills were thriving, what they would do is they would develop little mill villages around the mills that would allow people to, essentially walk or ride a bike, or I don't know if they rode horses back then. But they would have easy access to the mill. I mean, we're talking definitely within walking distance and easily within biking distance. And these mill villages all have very similar architecture, very similar looks to the houses that they put up. It's kind of like today, when you go into these production-built neighborhoods by, Ryan Homes or Meritage or Mungo or whatever, and you're like, oh, all these houses look the same. Well, they did that back in the day with these little mill villages. So around all these mills, and we have dozens of them in the upstate of South Carolina, you see these little mill villages, and the houses generally have this look where it's kind of a flat 2-story front with a big front porch with a roof, over the big front porch, and then the back of it slopes down all the way down pretty steeply to basically only 1 story. So it's not a full, it is a full 2-story structure, but the second story doesn't go over the entire footprint of the first floor. And so the back roof slopes all the way down and then off from there. And that's the general look of all of these mill houses. And there's a few other type of mill house looks that you'll see, but that is the most stereotypical one. So in Piedmont, if you're driving through downtown Piedmont, you will experience that, and you'll see exactly what that is. And I guess at one time it was a thriving community, but not so much anymore, right? I mean, again, drive through it, you'll see it is not thriving at this time. Now, as we're seeing the gentrification moving, and as we're seeing people flipping more houses in that Piedmont area because it's one of the last places where you can find cheap real estate, we're starting to see some revitalization happening. And so, again, I have to be careful with saying that this is always a good thing, because there are some negatives to gentrification and some negatives to areas being revitalized, because they sometimes, and in many instances, end up pushing out those lower income residents, end up pushing out families that have lived there for years and years. I was tracking some of my family ancestry recently on Ancestry.com, and it was interesting that there was a famous house that my fifth great grandfather built in Pennsylvania, and that house, had to be sold in the early 1900s. It had been in the family for over 100 years, and then it was eventually sold in 1900, and that's kind of sad. Well, that's what we see happening in a lot of these types of areas as gentrification happens. Some of these homes that have been owned within a family for 70 or 80 years, they have no choice but to have to sell them and to have to move on to somewhere else. So I want to be careful about how I portray it. But from a meta perspective, me as a realtor, in terms of the market in general, this type of revitalization is generally speaking a good thing. And for the Greenville area in particular, and the Piedmont areas we're talking about now, any sort of revitalization is really good. So to bring this all back, I referenced the Poe Mill had been sold, and similarly in Piedmont, the Piedmont Mill area, 12.6 acres on the river below the community center, was sold several years ago and is right on the cusp of being developed by, I believe the company name is Red Oak Developers. And they were planning to do this before COVID, but then COVID completely shut everything down, as we all know. And so they've just been sitting on this property for several years. They're probably very happy with what has happened the past couple of years in terms of growth in that area. I don't know what they purchased it for originally, but I'm sure that they're looking at prices now and probably salivating at what they can do. And so this is the interesting part of it that I didn't expect, but they're actually planning to build townhomes in that area. That's not something, I don't know every area of Piedmont super well, but that's not something I ever think about when I think about Piedmont as townhomes. But that'll be an interesting development over there. They're planning on those townhomes to be in the high 200,000 range to maybe the low 300,000 range. So affordable, not so much, unfortunately. But it will start to, again, keep driving the growth in that area. I mean, honestly, those numbers are kind of surprising. I'll be interested to see what these townhomes look like at the end of the day, because you can get a pretty nice townhome in Greenville County for high 200s to low 300,000s. They're also going to be doing a pedestrian bridge across that river, and then having a kayak take in and take out below the dam for the kayakers that are there in the Saluda. I did not know that there was kayaking in the Saluda down in this section in the Piedmont area. So I actually looked this up, and sure enough, there is a company that I found called Saluda River Rambler, and it looks like they have a pretty cool little kayaking business that they do that takes you right by the dam over there. So shout out to Saluda River Rambler. I'll definitely be exploring them a little later. I think that they open back up later in the year when things get a little bit, let's see here. Booking available again on May 1st, opening weekend, Saturday, May 28th through Monday, May 30th. So in the month of May, we'll be able to start booking with them, and then they have their opening weekend coming up later on that day. So look them up, Saluda River Rambler, if you're interested in kayaking that Piedmont area. That's a neat little idea, neat little family activity that can be done. And so they're going to be doing some stuff with that mill area and with the area where the kayakers go, that will then to help make it more interesting, again, more vibrant, give people stuff to do. This is the and I think that they're going to be doing stuff with the park and whatnot, and just trying to, again, just make the area nicer. This is what we keep seeing. This is the way development has proven to be successful in the Upstate, is when they combine residential, sometimes with commercial, and oftentimes with some sort of greenery in the mix. People want things that they can do that they don't have to travel to. They want to be able to just walk to the park. They want to be able to just take a stroll in the area, or take out a kayak and jump in the Saluda River. I think that sounds like a blast. I mean, that sounds like something similar to what people in Travelers Rest right now get to do, with the Swamp Rabbit Trail being right there and all of the outdoor activities that are in Travelers Rest. And so Piedmont could be positioning itself as kind of that next outdoorsy type of area, even though right now we don't think of it that way. So I'm very interested to see how this all plays out. I don't know exactly what their timelines are. I know that they're planning to start doing interior demolition this month, is what they said. They were planning to do that in March of 2020, and hoping to open by the end of 2020. But now they're starting March of 2022, and we'll see exactly how that ends up playing out long term. Maybe they'll be done by the end of this year. I think that's optimistic. It'll probably be pushing into next year, but I'm excited to see that. And if you are a investor, a real estate investor, or a homeowner in Piedmont, generally speaking, you should be excited for this as well. This should be very good. Like I said, it cuts both ways, but generally speaking, on a meta level, this should be very good for the area of Piedmont. And I think it will put Piedmont on the map for a lot of people that just haven't considered it at all up to this point. Because if you're going to go to a mill village, why not go to one of these other mill villages that are way closer to downtown Greenville? Well, Piedmont is going to be making a play here in the upcoming years that maybe that is the one, that the mill area that people should consider, and they're going to have a lot more new construction, and with that, a lot more houses being flipped. There's already a decent bit of houses being flipped in that area. Expect to see that more and more and more in the upcoming months and years. So short little episode today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep Piedmont on your radar, and I think that you will benefit as a potential homeowner, as a potential investor. It's definitely something to keep in mind. All of my contact information is in the show notes. As always, rate, review, subscribe, and we'll talk again next week.